What's going on, everyone? It's Ben from YGO from Zero, back with another retro Yu-Gi-Oh video, and back with my first Trooper format video, or at least my first Trooper video showing off gameplay. And I did release a sort of guide to Trooper format, which I definitely recommend you check out if you want to know some of the new cards in this format. Now, I did post sort of like an update to that. In the comments of that, I pinned that comment where some of the cards I mentioned were not in the format, but it shouldn't make too much of a difference. It's still a good introduction to the format if you are curious what this format is all about. This format is based in August of 2007 at the SJC Indianapolis of that year. And it is pretty fun. Compared to Demise format, which is the last format that I covered, there aren't really too many new inclusions, and the ban list didn't really change that much. But the new inclusions that we did get are somewhat impactful, namely Ryza the Storm Monarch. This card is pretty insane. It's the best Monarch by a long shot right now. And it's just so powerful. Just being able to spin a card back onto the top of your opponent's deck is so good and so devastating in the right hands. Now, this does lead to a Perfect Circle Monarch deck that does arise at this time period, which I will cover when we get to that soon. But the first deck I wanted to feature on the channel is the Troop Dupe Scoop deck, because this format is named Trooper, and I feel like showing off the namesake deck of the format is pretty good. Now, I showed off a version of Troop Dupe Scoop in Demise format, which did not play Ryzas, but because this is, Trooper format, and we now have Ryzas, I figured I wanted to show off a deck list that played it. So I also combined this with my tendency to, when first entering into a new format, trying out the winning deck list of the latest event. And so this is a deck list that the duelist Splevin used to win the last Trooper event. And this is basically like a Troop Dupe Scoop style deck. You know, you're playing the Troopers, you're playing machine duplication, you're playing limit removal, etc. But it also plays more aspects of the Perfect Circle Monarch deck a little bit. It's playing the Ryzas, not quite doing the full Perfect Circle stuff because not playing Phoenix Wing Windblast, not playing, the hero engine as well. So it's definitely more into the machine side of things. But, it combos with sort of some of the new cards. So I figured it would be a good deck to show off, for the first video on the channel. Let's go through the card by card real quick. So, firstly, we got the 3 Troopers. The namesake combo of the deck is you summon out a Trooper, go for machine duplication, get out 2 more. And then that's 3 times 1900, so 5700 points of damage on board. And then if you buff that up with something like limit removal or something else, then it gets even more absurd. So this is a very good card for the deck. We got triple Sidra, double Cider Phoenix, and double Dekoichi here. This is your other machine package along with the Jinzo to pair with limit removal and a bunch of other things. But Cider Phoenix is nice, prevents your Troopers or whatever else from being targeted as well. We've got also 3 Gravekeeper Spy to pair with the Ryzas and the Jinzo. This is just nice to get tribute fodders on field and also thin out your deck a little bit. It can be awkward if you mill some of the spies off the Trooper, but as long as you have 2 in the deck, or at least 1 in the deck and 1 on field, then it's still pretty fine. We got a Morphing Jar to dig deeper into our deck. We got triple Ryza because Ryza is a house. We got a Sangan here to search out most of our deck. We got a Reaper to rip cards out of our opponent's hand. And for the spells, we got Book of Moon, very versatile card in the format. Double Braincon to pair with our Ryzas and our Jinzo. We've got a Coffee to rip apart our opponent's hand here. We got a Heavy Storm to deal with their back row. Limit removal to buff up our machines that I mentioned before. Machine dupe with the Troopers that I mentioned before. The MST to deal with our opponent's back row. We've got a Knock to deal with their sets. We got a Pot of Avarice to sort of reset our deck a bit with triple Trooper. We likely are going to have 5 monsters in graveyard, so we can use this to great advantage there. We've got a Premat to bring back anything in our grave. Again, with triple Troopers, it's nice to have a full grave for this sort of thing. Scapegoat is interesting here. I'm kind of iffy on the card in this deck. It does sort of stop some more aggressive decks from, killing you, but it is kind of an awkward card. I feel like Threatening Roar or maybe even Wuboku would be a little bit better here, but I guess this does play around Jinzo as well, so I think it's fine. I'm not the biggest fan in this deck. We got a Snatch Seal here to take control of our opponent's stuff. We got a Call the Haunter to bring back our own stuff. We got a Mirror Force to deal with our opponent's aggressive pushes, a Ring of Destruction to deal with their monsters, ATT to blow up the board, and then triple Trap Dash Dupe because the last format where Trap Dupe 2 is at 3. So I don't like that part of this format. Like, I hate Trap Dash Dupe as a card, but it is a very good card, and the deck is playing 3 in the main, so we're playing 3 in the main as well. For the side deck, we got a couple different options here. We got System Downs for the machine decks along with Electric Virus here. Electric Virus can also be used against Dragon decks, but there aren't too many of those in this format. We've got Double Banisher for graveyard reliant decks. Things like Perfect Circle Monarch, can suffer a bit against the Banishers here. We've got Double Mobius for back row heavy decks. We've got a Puppet Plant for Warrior Spellcaster decks. I'm not really sure which Warrior Spellcaster decks are running around this format, but I guess Warriors in general. This is just okay to bring in. We've got a Snipe Hunter here to deal with our opponent's stuff if we're up against a deck that advantage does not really matter that much. We got double Pulling the Rug against things like Monarchs, but there are some some other interesting decks in the meta that this does pair well against, which we'll get to when we get to that. We got double Royal Decree to deal with trap focus decks and double T-Roar, again, more aggro decks. For the Fusion deck, we don't really have ways to go into this, but these are the main monsters that you'd see play in the Fusion deck at this time, so I think it's fine to have a deck like this. I personally would just fill up the deck a little bit more because there's no cost to doing that. Since we're playing online, you don't need to buy new Fusion monsters for your extra deck here, and it just sort of like, maybe your opponent won't know what you're playing initially, but I think 9 cards in the Fusion deck is also fine, because these are the big ones that you'll see. But that's going to do it for the deck breakdown. Let's dive into some games and see what we actually do. We are starting with a game against a meta deck played by Dump Truck here, if you can guess on the channel. Always glad to have them on, so let's see how we do against this more competitive matchup here. But we will have more duels against some of the janker options that you can get in this format later on. We open a pretty good hand, all things considered. I just start by setting Spy because I feel like it's good just to get Spies out of the deck. And then we keep our entire hand here. I don't necessarily want to play into backer remove because I feel like all of our cards are pretty active cards that we want to keep around for making plays on our turn. So if they just blind MST our back row, that's kind of annoying. Yes, an MST could hit pre-mat or snatch anyways, but, just good to sort of play around that sort of thing. We're just going to pass back to them here, though. They go for a Rhoda here for a Stratos. Stratos will get a search of a Mali there. So it seems like they're on Perfect Circle Monarch, or at least some sort of hero deck. They go D-draw there, pitching the Mali, going for the Mali effect to banish itself and bring out another Mali from deck. This could be a bit awkward if they go into meta for Darkblade the Dragon Knight, because that can actually beat over Spy, but it looks like they're not going to do that. They're just going to set 2, pass back to us. We feel pretty good about this. They do go for Crush Card, though. That's why they brought up the Mali. And luckily, our entire hand and field are not affected by Mali, or by Crush Card, that is. So that worked out very, very well for us. Very funny that happened, but, that's also kind of why I always save the Crush Card for when my opponent actually does something. For instance, if we had brought out Card Trooper and then used its effect to sort of mill and buff it up, then the Crush Card would have hit that at least. We would have gotten a draw, but then that draw would have been checked by Crush Card as well. So, I just am in favor of saving Crush Card for the last possible moment where it can be used. But I guess they're trying to prevent a Monarch summon here because, if we just summon out a Monarch here and potentially try and do something with their board, that's kind of annoying. But, at a counter argument for that, like, the Monarch that we'd probably be playing is Ryza, maybe Zaborg, maybe even Mobius. But any of those cards kind of trade favorably into Crush Card. Let's say we go Ryza, try spin back Crush Card or the Mali. They just chain Crush Card, and, that's stopped there. If we try and hit the other back row, yes, they do get to have to draw that again, and that's if the back row is not chainable, so it might not be chainable indeed. But I think overall it's still fine because we used up our normal summon here, so we're not doing anything more really this turn. So I think overall just saving the Crush Card is just the better play overall. Even if we do have a Monarch summon here, I think it does work out better for them. But we're going to take advantage of that early CCV, go for a Gravekeeper Spy here, then go for a Trooper, mill 3 with that, try and hit something good in Graveyard with Premat there. So we pay the cost on the Trooper to send 3, because that is indeed the cost, but they do have a TT for that. So that will blow up the board. Luckily, we do have Premat here to do stuff with, and we draw into a Scapegoat off that Card Trooper there. So now we could potentially go for Premat for Card Trooper, and then maybe even limit removal that up if we want to. But I just decided to set a Dust Shoot and a Scapegoat and pass back, because I feel like this is a pretty good defensible board here. In standby, we go for the Dust Shoot there, see what they're working with. See, they've got a Sangan, a Disc Commander, Premat, Heavy Storm, and BrainCon. Now, this is kind of an awkward spot for us to be in here, because if we spin back the Disc Commander, they can get back with Sangan. If we spin back the Sangan, they've got Actus, Disc Commander, and Premat, which is obviously not good for us. So what I decided to do here is I just decided to spin back the Disc Commander, because it will take a couple turns for them to actually get that Disc Commander online if they want to search that out with the Sangan. So I figured this should be fine for us. They go for Sangan here. They then go for Mali, banishing the Mali to bring out another Mali here. And then they attack in for 18. Now, I could potentially go for a Scapegoat here, but the risk is then that they don't attack into one of our tokens, and then we're sort of zone locked here, which will actually hamper quite a bit of our plays. You could argue that that's not necessarily a bad thing, because, they still have to get through our board in order to get to us directly. So, it still is fine, even if we're zone locked, because Trooper can sort of maintain the fort on its own for a bit. But I do want to go for an aggressive play here, because we've got Snatch, we've got Premat, we've got Trooper, we've got Limiter. We've got a lot of options here to potentially pull off an OTK on this coming turn, especially because we know that they've got no defensive back row here. They're going to pass back to us. We draw into a Morphing Dart, so we're going to show that to our opponent. And now we got to do a bit of a think. Now, I think the best move to do here, honestly, is just go for Card Trooper, mill 3. If we hit something like Sidra, we actually can just win the game off this, because we bring back Premat, we Snatch Steal the Sangan, and then we limit removal on the Sidra and the Trooper, and that is lethal damage. So what I decided to do here is I just go for Trooper, mill 3, milling Ryza, Spy, and Phoenix there. We could potentially go for pre-mat on the Phoenix. That wouldn't be that bad because then the Heavy Storm won't affect the Phoenix here because, when they fire heavy, pre-mat will be destroyed, but the Siren Phoenix will negate the effect to pop it once the pre-mat dies. So there is that option. Then we won't be able to use the Scapegoat to full effect, I guess. But we have to think here too, because we could just go for the aggressive option, going for the Card Trooper Engrave, bring that back, buffing up that as well. So both these Card Troopers have 1900 each. And then if we limiter and Snatch Steal, that's 3800 plus 3800, which is 7600 plus 1000 on the Sangan. So that's 8600 minus 800, which is 7800. So it's not quite lethal, but does get our opponent down to 200. Now, they will be gaining 1000 off the Snatch Steal. They do have Heavy Storm. So, do I want to go all in on that? Well, I've got Morphing Jar, so maybe it is a good idea to go all in on that. And I think in hindsight, the move here is indeed to do that because, we do have the Morphing Jar to recover from this play if our opponent does have ways to get out of it later. And I think that it is just the best play overall. So, I should have done that in hindsight, but I'm thinking like, okay, well, I've still got Scapegoat for defensive options here. And, I can still chain if they do use Heavy Storm on this board. And I could potentially go for an aggressive play next turn, right? I've got Limiter, I've got Pre-Mat still, I've got Snatch Steal. So I've still got a lot of options here to get aggressive later. And I don't think my opponent can kill me through the Scapegoat. So I'm feeling fine about this. If they go for heavy now, just to preemptively trigger the Scapegoat, then that is unfortunate because, again, we're not really in like kill range or anything, but I think it is still fine. They go for Pre-Mat on the Stratos here. They're able to search out a Disc Commander there, which, at least the pre-mat's gone, so they can't use that with the Disc Commander, so I'm a lot less afraid of that than I would be otherwise. We're going to take 1400 from the Stratos hit there, and we draw into BrainCon. So BrainCon actually provides an interesting sort of thing, because now I don't really want to Scapegoat here either, because I've got two Snatch Steal cards here. I've got pre-mat, and I've got limiter removal, so I will be able to potentially OTK my opponent next turn. So I don't go for Scapegoat here, which I do think is correct, and my opponent sets one, passing back. We draw into Heavy Storm, which is actually really good for us. I could go for Heavy Storm here, and I think in hindsight, it probably is best to go for Heavy Storm here. That pops the Stratos. We've got pre-mat for the Trooper. We've got limiter. We've got, Snatch for Sangan as well. So we can get in a fair bit of damage. That's 4,800. If we normal summon the Morphing Jar, that's 5,500. So not quite lethal again. We're just so close all these times. But what I decided to do here instead is I decided to, take it a bit safe. I go for the pre-mat on the Trooper here because, if they do clear this, then we still do get a draw. And I can go for milling 3. And then I can try taking the Stratos with that. I can try snatching the Sangan. And this actually will be lethal damage if this all goes through. So I decided to go for this play instead of going for the heavy first. Their back row may be something, but if it isn't, then we're feeling pretty good here. So we attack in with everything, and if this makes a damage step, we will limiter, but it unfortunately did not make it a damage step. They've got Phoenix Wing Wind Blast for that, so they will be able to stack that Trooper back on top of the deck. So this is a bit awkward for us. And yeah, we're just going to set this Morphing Jar here pass because we don't necessarily want to get draw locked into the Trooper. But I think in hindsight, I shouldn't have done this because this does shut off our Scapegoat here. Yes, if they heavy, they lose their Stratos, and they've just got a Sangan attacking in. But I do think that, it is better just to leave the Scapegoat online, no matter how awkward the board may seem there. But we just do this, pass back. We don't set heavy and limiter because we know about the heavy anyways, and they know about the Morphing Jar. So, they're just going heavy first no matter what. And so if they don't heavy first, I think it's also fine because then our Scapegoat's back online for when they do heavy. But if they do heavy first, then we're just losing everything anyways. So, they're going to gain 1,000 here. They go for the Heavy Storm indeed, so they are able to pop everything, and they get back their Sangan, set 1, attack in with the DD Warrior Lady here. I think they could have attacked in with Sangan instead because they're not going to manage this, and they know that's a Morphing Jar, so they could have just done this, but I don't think it really matters that much. We're still taking a fair amount of damage here. Just potentially gives us a little bit more time. So they're going to go 4,000 in with the Sangan, dropping us down to 12. And then they've got a Comfy here on top of that. So they are able to rip apart our hand a little bit more, ripping away that Cyber Dragon, and then going for a Rhoda here for Fearmonger. Just to get it out of the deck, they're probably out of targets for it besides that. So they want to actually get value off this. We draw into another Sidra, so we're just going to go for that, see if that's okay on summon. It looks like it will be. We attack into the DD Warrior Lady because, if we just summoned out Jinzo, crashed into Sangan here, then they could just search out something that has over 1,200 attack, crash in with the DD Warrior Lady into Jinzo, and then win the game from that. I mean, we do have Mirror Force, but they know about Mirror Force, so it might not really be the best for us to, set a known background to something that might be like a Phoenix Wing or something like that. If they do Phoenix Wing or Cyber Dragon, we could potentially set like Sired Phoenix. If they attack him with TD Warrior Lady, then they have to shoot to banish that. And we'd still lose the game from that probably, but I mean, it's just, we're in a bad spot no matter what. I think this is the best solution, though. So they will indeed banish there, and then we set this Sired Phoenix, hoping that they don't have a way to get over this thing. So we're just going to T-set pass back to them. They do have a D-draw, so that'll probably help them get into a way to get over this thing. They do have an upstart, so this gives us a little bit of a cushion here, which is very nice to see. They do have a Ryza, though, so they're able to spin back our Mirror Force here. And unfortunately, in this format, I believe that Sired Phoenix did not get the draw because it used its original text on its effect, which says that it has to be face up upon being attacked to actually get the draw there. So it's kind of rough. But we still have this Mirror Force here that we can potentially, turn online and stuff like that. And I do think that setting the Sired Phoenix was the best play overall, but it just is very awkward. We set a Trooper here. This will get the draw if they attack over it at least. They're going to go for another Ryza, spinning back our Mirror Force, attacking over what they know to be the Trooper, but at least this does prevent us from getting an additional draw. So we're trying to Ring, which is not useful for us now, but we can set the Mirror Force and the Ring. Maybe they'll blind snipe the Ring or something. We can Mirror Force this Ryza because ringing the Ryza will cause us to lose the game, and maybe there will be a better opportunity to use Ring later. We run to TT, which is also a pretty good trap here. We're going to set that pass back to them. They're going to flip up the Trooper. That is fine because we can always ring this while surviving. They're going to bring out Reaper, and that we will TT here. They draw a card off that. They set one, pass back to us. We draw into Cyber Dragon, which is now useless because there's no monster on their side of the field. They MST our back row. It's the Ring. And now we're feeling a bit bad. They go for Trooper here, mill 3. We see that they mill the Ring, though, so that is very nice because that means that we are not dead here, but we are in a very, very bad spot. They're going to set one, set another, pass back to us. We draw into a Machine Dupe, which is not going to help us here, but we can still special summon out the side to see if they have anything on summon, because if they don't, then we can summon out Jinzo and potentially turn the game around. But they are going to Phoenix Wing the Cyber Dragon, which I do think is the correct choice because they know about the Jinzo. And yeah, that's just going to be the end of the game because Machine Dupe is not going to do anything on that board. That is one of the flaws of this deck. Like in the later game, it can be a bit bad because things like Machine Dupe and, getting out multiple spies and stuff like that, that's great in the early game, but when you've gone through a fair amount of your deck, it can get a bit awkward. But the deck is generally trying to kill your opponent earlier in the game anyways, so if you've reached that point, you're kind of in a spot that you shouldn't be with the deck. But anyway, I just T-set here. I set the MST just in case they set like Phoenix Wing. I can snipe it in the end phase. But if they do blind snipe with an MST, I'm also fine with that. I don't want to play into heavy, so I want to keep my book around for later. They're just going to set 2, pass back to us. We draw into another spy, so we're flipping up that spy right now, bringing out a spy in attack mode here just to get a bit aggressive. We're going to attack in for 12 and 12 if this goes through, but they've got Mirror Force there, so they're able to stop that. And the main two, we're just going to set to Koichi, set a book, pass back to them. I figure, if they summon out a thing to attack over to Koichi, we could potentially book it down, flip it to Koichi, summon out Ryza, spin that back, and then we're in a pretty good spot. But maybe I should set the spy just to have, tribute fodder probably on field no matter what. They're going to go for an upstart here, so we gain 1,000 more there. They draw 1, they just pass, so we're feeling very good about that. Because now we just get this free draw without having to use the book. We draw into Dust Shoot as well, so that's going to be good too. We can spin back that back row, or at least attempt to, but they do have a Phoenix Wing for our back row there, so they're going to spin that back. They probably don't want us to pull off Ryza's effect yet again, but they still have enough cards in hand for us to, have Dust Shoot online. Now, the awkward thing here is that if we spin back a Mally, that's unfortunate, but this is hand knowledge no matter what, so I do think it's ultimately pretty good. We go for the Dust Shoot and standby and see that they've got all spells and traps: Call, Machine Dupe, BrainCon, and Ring. So luckily they don't have any setup engraved for that. So, even though we don't spin something back, I don't think they can really do much here. If they go BrainCon on Rise, it doesn't really do anything at this point. And they don't have anything for Call. So they could potentially banish a Mally here just to, wall off a bit, but we can just summon out Spy, attack over that, and try and do stuff with that. So we are going to summon out a Reaper here, just try and bait out some back row, like we know about the Ring. So, if they use Ring on Reaper, we're fine with that, and they will indeed do this. So they're going to pop that Reaper, or at least attempt to. But I decided to book the Reaper because if they go for an aggressive push with the, BrainCon and other stuff in hand, I'd rather have the Reaper set because they won't have a way to deal with that if they draw into something aggressive, like a Card Trooper or something. So we're just going to set that down as a defensive measure. And then they're going to brain con our Ryza here. So they're able to take that, attack into our Reaper just to flip it up. You know, if they get smashing or something like that, then that can potentially come up. And they're going to set one pass back. And we know what that means. That is a Mally right there. So this is going to be a bit awkward for them. Checking our graveyard, we've got 4 monsters in grave, not 5. So something we could do is we could like tribute over the Reaper for Cyber Dragon, activate Pot. But I don't think I need to do that right now. I think I can just summon out a Spy and then just try get ripping with the Reaper. That's what we're going to do. We're going to attack over the Mally there. And then we're going to get in for 3, rip a card out of their hand, and rip a Machine Dupe. I mean, that's probably the worst of the cards that we could potentially rip out of their hand, but I guess there is a world in which they top deck Card Trooper and then, like, go crazy with Machine Dupe, but I feel like that's not a world that I really care about because we got Cyber Dragon, tribute over the Reaper, and then get in for a ton of damage. But they draw into Rhoda for Stratos here, grabbing a Disc Commander, which is very good if they get Call online. But, you know, we're feeling pretty good about this overall. They can clear our Spy and then deal 500 to us over the Reaper, but you know, we can get in for a lot of damage over that Mally there. So they're going to do that. Pass back to us. We draw into a Card Trooper here, which is very good. We could go for Avarice first, and I do indeed go for Avarice first because we got 5 monsters in grave. Might as well draw away to potentially win the game off this. So that's what we're going to try to do here. We shuffle up the deck, draw 2. We draw into Koichi and Braincon. I mean, Braincon's a way to win the game. We summon out Trooper, mill 3. This is the wrong choice on my part. I know their hand exactly, so I should not do this. This has revealed more information about our deck. For instance, the fact that we sided in pulling the rug. But, you know, it doesn't really matter here. They probably assume that we're siding and pulling the rug, but we just go for Braincon on the Stratos, and then, you know, we're on to the next game. So we are going second here. Our opponent's going first. We do keep in the pullings, I believe, because, you know, they can be awkward going second, but if our opponent's on a Monarch deck, you know, the pullings can be very good, and if they do go into a late Stratos, then the pullings can be very good in that situation as well. Opponent's going to draw for turn, go for an early Stratos, though, and grab a Disc Commander here, so that's going to be a bit unfortunate for us. They set 1, pass back to us, we draw Jinzo, but they got the Dust Shoot, so they can spin back this to Koichi here. Bit of an interesting choice. I guess they don't want us to get another draw here, but the Spy does wall up in the face of Stratos, and then gets us sort of monsters to potentially, you know, cause problems for them here. But, you know, I think this does kind of make sense because if they set up their board in a way that Ryza can't really get through, then that's pretty good for them. And they don't really care about the Ryza after that, but Jinzo can cause them problems. But I guess that shuts off our own ring, so I guess this does make some sense, but I'm just going to go for Spy, set ring, pass back to them, and see what they do. They're going to go for D-draw, pitching Mally. That's very good. And then they're going to go for Rhoda here, grabbing a Warrior Lady to potentially... Yeah, I don't necessarily know what they're doing, that Warrior Lady, but potentially clear one of my monsters later. They're going to attack into the Spy here, and we get another Spy in defense mode there. And then they're going to set 1, pass back to us. We draw Braincon, so we could just Braincon the Stratos and then summon out Jinzo. But I do feel like it's just better to save Braincon for an aggressive push later. You know, we got Ring, we've got Braincon, we got a ton of stuff here, so we can potentially do a major play here. You know, we're just going to beat over the Stratos, pass back to them, and see what they do. Ring is shut off at this point, so that is awkward. But I think the only real thing that makes it super awkward is if they summon out Mobius, or if they, like, Snatch Steal our Jinzo. That'd be bad. But they can banish a Mally here, go for a Mally, and probably bring out a Monarch. No, they're just bringing out a Trooper. Okay, that's fine. They're going to mill 3, and they do have the Snatch. Ooh, that is rough. This is sort of like a worst-case scenario for us. Not the end of the world, because there are some things we can do here. We could Braincon something, tribute for Ryza, Ryza back to Jinzo, get that on top of our deck, and then, you know, Snatch is gone. We draw into Jinzo later, but that can sort of draw lock ourselves here, so that's kind of awkward. So what we're ultimately going to do here is do a bit of a funnier play. We're going to Braincon the Jinzo, take control of that, and then summon out Cyber Phoenix, which will negate the effect of the Snatch Steal targeting the Jinzo at the end of this turn. So if they don't have a way to deal with Cyber Phoenix, then that means that we get to keep our Jinzo. We know that they've got DD Warrior Lady, though, so I just did this for the funny memes, honestly. I should not have done this. I think what I should have done is I should have just Brainconned, like, the Card Trooper, tributed over that with, like, Ryza, and then spun back the Jinzo to the top of our deck. I think that would have been much better. As is, I didn't do that, and, you know, we might get punished for that, but we're going to attack in for 800 over Trooper. They do get a draw with that, and then we attack over the Mally. We did in this order. I mean, it wouldn't really matter the order, I guess, but hopefully they drew into the third Mally. That's what I'm kind of hoping. But the Cyber Phoenix does negate the Snatch Steal on the Jinzo, so that means that, you know, Jinzo will not go back at this point, but they can just summon out that DD Warrior Lady, attack over the Cyber Phoenix here, and banish that so we don't get the draw, and then get back the Jinzo attacking for 24. So it didn't really make that much of a difference, but it was a very funny play. And they're just going to pass back to us. We draw BrainCon, so actually we are able to win the game for this position anyways. We're just that good of a player, even though we did the funny meme play. We go for BrainCon on the Jinzo, attack in for 24 with that. And that's going to be fine. We then tribute the Jinzo for a Ryza, targeting the unknown back row. And even if this is like Phoenix Wing or TT or something like that, we can then chain Ring to target the Ryza, and that'll be the end of the game. The only real punish to that was like pulling the rug. But if it's pulling the rug, we still have Ring on field, so I feel pretty fine about that. So that's going to do it for this game here. So pretty good against the sort of meta deck. Even though, I think we did some misplays at different points, and, I don't know. There's some questionable things in the deck, like Scapegoat, I think maybe shouldn't be here. And, there's arguments for like leaning into more of a Monarch build or more of a pure machine beat build would be better, because there were hands that we just had multiple tributes that we couldn't really do anything with. But I do think that this deck overall is very, very good in the metagame and definitely competitive. I would even say probably tier 1. But, this is against a meta deck. Let's dive into a bit more of a rogue strategy to see how it does against that. Okay, we got a game here against Colgate, another frequent guest on the channel. Always a pleasure to have them on. And we're diving into the games here. We're going first. And this is a pretty good opener. I mean, we got Cyber Dragon, Nock, and Ryza. That is a pretty killer combination. We are going first, though, so this isn't the best going first hand, but we can set that Mirror Force, pass back to our opponent. Opponent's going to summon out an Amber Mammoth, so they're on Crystal Beast. Very cool deck. I love this archetype, so it's always cool to see people experimenting with and, seeing what they brew up. So we'll have to see how this deck does against us here. And this may give some inspiration for the version that we'll be playing on the channel eventually as well. They're going to search out Rainbow Ruins off the Terraforming just to get out of the deck, and then set one, pass back to us. We draw Coffee, which is pretty good here. Would have liked it probably a little bit better turn 1. We can still go for Cyber Dragon here, go for Ryza, target that back row. I probably in hindsight should have targeted the Amber Mammoth, because if that is like Phoenix Wing, that's kind of awkward. They'd send back the Ryza. But I think overall this is fine. If it is Phoenix Wing, which it is, then we can still copy their hand here. And then we've still got Cyber Dragon plus Ryza set up for next turn, right? So we can go for Comfy, get a peek at what they're working with here. See, they've got Crystal Promise, Call the Haunted, and Ancient City Rainbow Ruins. Now, Ancient City Rainbow Ruins, it is very good if you get 3 or more Crystal Beasts here, but if you don't, then it doesn't really do much. So what I decided to do is take the Call the Haunted. Yes, Crystal Promise can be very good. And maybe in hindsight, I probably should have taken Crystal Promise, because if they go Sapphire Pegasus, get a Carbuncle in the spell trap zone, then Crystal Promise it back. That's a bit awkward for us. Same if they go Sapphire Pegasus into Crystal Promise. So I think in hindsight, actually against this deck, Crystal Promise is a little bit better. But I figured Call the Haunted is a little bit more flexible. If I've got backer removal, then, it can potentially be a bit awkward there. And also, this is a... you can place this face up in the spell trap zone. It's not mandatory. So if they want to pair it with Call, they can do that. But I think in hindsight, it just would have been better to do the Crystal Promise here. But, that's sort of something that you get after playing matches against this deck and seeing how it exactly works. So, that's definitely a mistake on my part. But I can still summon out this Cyber Dragon, attack over the Amber Mammoth, and this should still be pretty good for us here. We pass back to our opponent, and they are going to go for a set back row, pass back to us. We draw into a Ryza here, and I think about whether I want to go for Ryza. I could Ryza back that back row in case it's nothing. That might be the move, but the issue is if it's like another Phoenix Wing, then we're in a really bad spot, because, we're drawing into this dead Ryza. Well, not dead Ryza, but, we can't summon it for the foreseeable future. But you just go for the Ryza there. Unfortunately, it's Crystal Raigeki, so they are able to send this Amber Mammoth to the grave and pop the Ryza. But that's making me feel a little bit better about setting the Call, because now Call can't bring back that Amber Mammoth there. But we're going to pass back to our opponent. They go for Sapphire Pegasus. This is the GOAT. And if they want to go for another Sapphire Pegasus like that and then Crystal Promise it out, then they can do that. Get another thing in that spell trap zone. Sapphire Pegasus is so nuts. They're going to get the Carbuncle, which makes sense because this is really good if you can special summon out later. And they're going to attack in for 3,600 here. We do have the Mirror Force, though, to stop that. But they do have a Ancient City Rainbow Ruins, which we didn't know about. And if they get into another Crystal Beast, then they can start negating our stuff by tributing. So, kind of awkward there. We can set a book, pass back to them. A book pairs well with Nobleman here, so that's kind of nice. We draw Jinzo, which is not going to do anything for us here. We pass back to them. Seems like they're breaking as well, though, so we feel pretty good about that. They go for Amber Mammoth here, attacking for 17. I decided to book that down because then we can book and knock it, and I feel pretty good about that. I also don't want the Rainbow Ruins potentially being live to negate some of our stuff with that Amber Mammoth on field. So I'm going to knock it, just get it out of here, and then pass back to them. They are going to pass back to us, so I feel pretty good about this. We draw into Gravefuse Spy, which is very good. We could just summon it out and get in damage, but I'd like to preferably get monsters on field with this. So they're going to set 1, pass back to us. We draw to Koichi here, and because we have another normal summon after this, we can go for Gravefuse Spy here. If it's TT or something, then that's awkward for us, but if it's not, we can just summon out Jinzo here and negate that back row, whatever it is. Attack in for 2400 here, and they will have the damage with the Ancient City Rainbow Ruins and pass back to them. They are going to set 1, pass back to us. We draw Sire Phoenix, which is pretty good. We're just going to spin back that set monster with the Ryza and attack in for 48. And now we're feeling very, very good. We should probably have this thing in the bag. That even if they can have one of the attacks there, this is still lethal on board next turn. Even if they set one thing here, we can summon out Koichi. Well, actually, Koichi didn't do it. So actually, we're not quite out of the woods yet. So we need to figure out some other stuff to do here. They set 1, pass back to us. Checking my graveyard, I do have 5 monsters here, so I should have fired Pot of Avarice, honestly, last turn. But I do not do that, and I realize it now, so I go for the pot now, and hopefully this will get us some good stuff here. There may be an argument that I didn't really need to Pot of Avarice last turn, because, you know, I've got Jinzo on field, and rises the play no matter what here, but I think it still would have been better to do than not to do. We draw into Heavy, so that's pretty good. We can go for Heavy here, which will wipe away the entire board. I'm not sure if Rainbow Ruins actually stays on board or not. I don't think it does. But either way, it won't matter because they don't have any Crystal Beasts now to, stop this damage from all going through. So we attack over the set, and that will indeed be the end of the game. So we're going to dive into game 2 here. Feeling pretty good about this. We bring in some Pulling the Rugs because Sapphire Pegasus is a very good card, and they are playing 3 of it, so I feel like that is a good card overall. They're going to go for a Comfy here, take the Spy, which I think makes some sense, because they don't want us to get out another Spy from deck. We can still pre-mat into Ryza, but if they've got a way to deal with Ryza, that's using up a lot of our cards, so I think it makes sense to do that. They're going to set 2, pass back to us. We draw into TT here, and I don't necessarily want to pre-mat into Ryza, but I am just going to do it, because, might as well bait out the interaction that they probably have for this. And if they don't have interaction for this, then I'm feeling still pretty good about this. We go for Ryza, spin back that monster, attack in for 24, and they're going to go for Mirror Force, clear the Ryza. So that dealt with that, but we got TT on board, so now we can use the TT to blow up whatever they bring out. We've also got this Pulling the Rug that we could set here, but I don't necessarily want to do it, because if they've got like Heavy Storm or something, I don't want to get blown out here completely. And they also know about the pulling, so, I figure it's probably better to save it. Because they're going to probably figure that this set is pulling no matter what. So they're going to attack in for 17, pass back to us. We draw into a Book here, which is not quite the best. We're going to set a pulling because you're destroying spells and traps. They go Heavy Storm here. That's unfortunate, but we still have a Book of Moon for follow-up plays later. They go for a Topaz Tiger. And here, I think it honestly is worth going for the TT, because this right here is a 2-turn clock. It's 3,300 on board, and then 3,300 the next turn. So if we don't draw a way to deal with this, then we are just dead. So I feel like TT is the right move at this point in time. We draw a Limiter, which is not going to help us here. We set a Book, pass back to them. And now they're going to go for a Topaz Tiger. They're going to attack in for 16. We do let that go through. I figure Book is flexible enough. They don't necessarily need to use it on that. Koichi is a pretty good one, though. We can set that pass back to our opponent. We could have also just summoned this, backed up with Limiter or something, but I feel like setting it's fine. We want to get that flip effect off. They go for Topaz Tiger in here. We go for the Book on the Topaz Tiger. There is an argument for not doing this, but the way I see it is if we potentially flip up the Koichi next turn, we can use it with Limiter. If we draw into Card Trooper and other stuff, that's pretty good as well. And also, if we do get Koichi and a Trooper in grave, then it fuels our Pot of Avarice. So, seems like they're also a bit monster-light because they didn't commit anything else here. So, I feel like we're in a pretty good spot no matter what. They're going to set 1, pass back to us. We draw a Morphing Jar, which is okay here. We're going to set a Spell Trap here because we don't want to play into Dust Shoot if they do have a Dust Shoot. And we're going to go for Koichi there, drawing into Mobius. Mobius is honestly pretty okay here. I'm just going to attack in to the Topaz Tiger first, though, because I don't necessarily want to use Mobius right away. They're going to get that Topaz Tiger into the Spell Trap Zone, and then we go for Mobius, targeting their back row and also the Amber Mammoth. So that way, they have less options here for what to do. They get Crystal Raigeki, so they'll send the Amber Mammoth, taking away our Pulling the Rug. That's kind of unfortunate, but I do think they did know about the pulling, so it makes sense why they'd do that there. And they do have a Sidra to potentially do stuff with. They've got a Ryza as well, so they're able to spin back our Mobius, which they know we can't use right now, and attack in for 2,400. Now we're getting pretty low on life, so this is maybe an argument for having saved the Book, because if we'd saved the Book, maybe we would have been in a better spot here. But unfortunately, we did not, and we're in kind of a rough one now. We set a Morphing Jar, set the pot, pass back to them, but they do have this Phoenix Wing, so they're able to spin back that Morphing Jar. And yeah, we never reached 5 monsters in grave as well, so that's kind of rough. But, yeah, this is going to be the end of the game here. They're just attacking for 24. We do not have a way to stop that, and so we're going on to the all-important game 3. So, We are going to start off. Hopefully the pullings will actually hit a Sapphire Pegasus this time. It's a pretty decent hand, all things considered. We got a lot of back row to set, plus a Morphing Jar, so that's kind of nice. What I'm also going to decide to do is just set an MST, a Ring, and a Scapegoat. I feel like this is relatively protected against heavy. If they go heavy, we go Scapegoat, and we're fine with that. But, you know, one nice thing about this is that if they set Phoenix Wing, which we do know they have, we can MST snipe that in the end phase. So we're getting rid of a chainable trap, potentially, with that MST. They go for Sidra here. We are fine with that. They go for Amber Mammoth as well. They're going to attack over the Phoenix with the Amber Mammoth. So we get a draw here, which is very nice. We draw into a TT. They're going to attack him with Cyber Dragon as well. We are going to ring that just to get rid of it and get in some damage as well. We could potentially save this, but I feel like Ring gets worse the more damage you take, so it's just better to use it up now, I think. Coffee's pretty good. We get a peek at their hand, see what they've got, but we're not going to use it yet because we want to pull off this Morphing Jar play here. So we're going to set the house. If they've got heavy, that's unfortunate, but hopefully we're drawing into 5 new cards with Morphing Jar. But we'll have to see what they do. They bring out a Topaz Tiger here, attack into our Morphing Jar, and we rip 4 cards from them while we draw 5 more, so that's pretty good. They do draw 5 as well, but, you know, just good getting cards out of their hand. They're going to attack him to 17. We will take that. We could have gone for Scapegoat here, I guess, but, like, I don't really think it was worth it. Yeah, Scapegoat's just awkward in this deck. Like, I think there are very few use cases where you'd want to use it because it just clogs up your zones in general. They're going to set 2, pass back to us. We draw into a Dust Shoot, which is also very good given the amount of cards in hand. But I do think it's better just to go for Coffee here. Just get a peek at what they're working with right now so we can plan what we do. See, they've got a Knock, a Cyber Dragon, and a Crystal Promise here. I think of those, we want to get rid of Knock because we can set up a Gravekeeper Spy play here. And so we're leaving them with a Crystal Promise and a Sidra. They can still get over the Spy if they go Sidra, but I still feel like it's fine to do this. We can set the pulling and pass back to them. You don't need to commit the Dust Shoot because they're not close to getting 4 cards in hand. They attack in to the Spy here. They don't take any damage because Topaz Tiger boosts itself up a little bit. But we get another Spy from deck. They're going to summon out that Sapphire Pegasus, and we can use the pulling on that. So we know their hand exactly. We know that they don't have or actually, they can go for, this is kind of awkward because they can go Crystal Promise on Sapphire Pegasus because pulling the rug does not it does not negate the summon. So the Crystal Beast Sapphire Pegasus will still have been on the field. So it will still go to Spell Trap Zone. So that does make for an awkward Crystal Promise play later. But at least they'll have to use up Crystal Promise for that. So we can also MST their target for Crystal Promise, so we feel fine about that. We set a Sangan here because we're trying to get a TT online. So hopefully they'll commit more into this board. They go for Crystal Promise. We're just going to MST the Sapphire Pegasus so they get no value off that. And they're just going to attack into the Sangan, which I think is fine. So we grab a Card Trooper off that. And now we can potentially get aggressive here. It's a bit awkward because we do have 2700 life points, so we don't necessarily want to get more aggressive. We also do draw heavy, which we could play as well. So we're going to go for the Trooper here, see if that goes through. We're going to mill 3 and just try hitting over the Topaz Tiger here. And we're going to also pre-map back the Jinzo here because this will shut off traps and we can clear their entire board. So they can bring out Sidra, but we still live with this Trooper if they attack over the Trooper with the Sidra. But I do think it's just better to get aggressive here. They do have a Phoenix Wing, though, so they're able to pitch the Ruins, and that's going to be a bit awkward for us. But we still do live, even if they tribute summon out the Sidra here, and go for the Card Trooper attack. We're going to set a Dust Shoot here, and then set a Heavy, pass back to them. And then in the end phase, our opponent is going to go for Ring here on the Trooper, so that actually will be the end of the game. Exact lethal. So I was not considering this sort of outcome. Maybe I should have just set to Koichi, bid my time a little bit better, and I think, honestly, we would have been in a good spot overall. They can't clear the Spies. If they do bring out somebody to clear the Spies, we got TT. So, yeah, I think this was, unfortunately, a misplay on my part that led to the end of the game here. But it does show that Crystal Beasts do have some oomph to them, you know. So, very, very cool stuff. Crystal Beasts managing to take this one. I do think that this game also shows some of the awkwardness of this deck. Like game 2, you know, if our opponent's spinning back our tribute monsters, we have a lot less things to do with them or ways to get out of that sort of draw lock than something like Perfect Circle Monarch does, right? And if we're drawing the other half of our deck, then it can be a little bit underwhelming. But I do think that this deck is still very good. As I mentioned, I think it is tier 1. You know, even if it fell to a bit more of a rogue option, you know, maybe after Exploration, Crystal Beast will be a higher tiered option. Disclaimer, I don't think that that'll necessarily be the case, but I will be experimenting with the deck, and I do love the deck a lot, so happy to see you get a win here. But that's going to do it for the games for this video. I hope you all enjoyed as always. If you like this sort of content, subscribe to the channel, help grow it a bit more, and grow the community a bit more so that way we get to have bigger events, bigger tournaments, and things like that. If you want to play games in Trooper format, or any other format that I featured on the channel, then head over to the YGO from Zero Discord server, linked in the description down below. That's also where we hold our events, so if you do want to play in them, that's where to go. Also, let me know what you think of the deck down in the comments below. Let me know what you think about Crystal Beasts as well, since that did pop up in the video. And let me know what you think about the format in general. I mean, this was only one set of matches with one deck, but I will be exploring others, so let me know if there are any that you want me to cover, and let me know if you think this format is good or not. Also, big shouts to my Patreons as always. So big shoutouts to Rinchwin, Pork Raccoon, Bread Knocker, Tyler Compton, GeoMyFest, Dumbtruck, and Scout Zero. It means a lot that you all support me this way and encourage me to make more videos like this in the future. I hope you all enjoyed as always, and until next time, I've been Ben from YGO from Zero, and I'm signing off.